Has your child just received an autism diagnosis? I have Aspergers myself, but I'm not a parent and I don't have a kid on the spectrum. I have been one myself and can give you insights into what's happening on the other side to help you understand what's going on, but I haven't personally stood in your shoes. The wise words I'll be sharing in this video were compiled from interviews of parents who have been there and are still there. I asked them what message they had for parents of newly diagnosed children. You may or may not be surprised to hear that despite a wide range of experiences, the messages were astoundingly similar and very clear. Raising a child, any child, is just plain hard a lot of the time, and parenting an autistic child is no exception. So eager to offer support and encouragement, they spoke predominantly to these difficulties and challenges. For those going through a particularly tough time right now, the message is that things will improve and it will not be overwhelming forever. Or as one put it, things that are a really big deal now will not be a big deal later. When things weren't going well, many said they went through a period of self-blame. It's only natural to ask yourself the question, am I doing a good job? So if you're doubting yourself, just remember that the world wasn't built for autistic people, which means that when we're having a hard time, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You're doing a good job. Even just by showing up every day for your child, you're doing a good job. When society excludes and judges us for being different, it excludes and judges you too, and that can be hard. Many of the parents I spoke to told me about feelings of isolation and said that it's incredibly important to find a supportive network for yourself and your family, and to give yourself permission to seek help for yourself. As one said, I'm sorry if this is really blunt, but you don't have to pretend everything is perfect. It can be both, good and bad, from one day to the next. There were a wide variety of reactions to getting a diagnosis, and among the most common were grief and relief. So whatever you're feeling, it's okay, you're not alone. Whatever your situation, you're not alone. So I want to speak to that idea of grief really briefly, because for many, getting a diagnosis was a massive milestone and a big step forward. Finally getting some traction, finally making some progress. But we don't necessarily need to feel positive every second of every day. Grief is a real thing, and if you're experiencing it, then as an adult proud to be on the autism spectrum, I'm here to tell you that you have legitimately lost something that every parent loses. The first time you held your little baby in your arms, you had this grand vision for their life. For other parents, this fantasy may disappear over many, many years. The first time he chooses tennis instead of football, or the first time she chooses law instead of medicine. But with an autism diagnosis, that dream can shatter in an instant. And instead, in place of this fantasy, you receive the real gift of a unique human being, one who will inspire you and surprise you in ways you cannot possibly imagine now. And I just think, wow, you are in for an amazing ride. As one parent put it, if you have expectations, you need to grieve the loss of the child you thought you wanted, and then you will find your joy in the child you have. And I really love that. You will find your joy in the child you have. So naturally, when I asked the question, what would you tell a parent of a newly diagnosed child? I got a lot of advice, tips, tricks, warnings, so many sage words of wisdom. I'm only going to share 2 with you today. Number 1, very practical, look up sensory needs. Getting the sensory environment right can make a massive difference. Number 2 is get to know adults or even teenagers on the autism spectrum. It's only natural to worry about a future we can't see, right? Will they get a job? Will they have friends? Will they be happy? Every parent does this. It's only natural. You love your kids. So don't buy into the doom and gloom. If you want to learn about autism, by far the best way is to go out and meet real people and hear real stories. So you'll soon find that it's an incredible world with a lot to look forward to at every step of the way. Actually, I changed my mind. 1/3 piece of advice. As a parent, you now have an insight as to what it feels like to be on the autism spectrum. Okay, let me explain. Life is full of challenges, right? The only difference is that for most of the population, they kind of all have roughly the same challenges, which means that they can follow generic advice and most of the time it works out and problem solved. For me, when I encounter a problem, I look around and I think, how does everyone else deal with this issue, only to find that no one else has this problem? So with that in mind, my 3rd piece of advice is this: do what works for your family. Don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to ignore advice if it's not working. You don't need to know all the answers in advance. If one thing doesn't work, just keep trying, try something else, you will get there eventually. Unfortunately, there's a lot of generic advice, even generic autism-specific advice that is out there that just will not work for you, just like there's so much generic advice out there that does not work for me. So I really don't care if it works for 99% of people if it doesn't work for me. That's absolutely no consolation. So unfortunately, a lot of people tend to respond badly to this. They say something along the lines of, if you refuse to follow my advice, then your problems are your own fault. And maybe some of you already know what this feels like. So anyway, I'm getting a bit carried away. The point is that if you have a kid on the spectrum, you are in for one incredible ride. In the words of autism advocate Daniel Giles, who I interviewed just recently, he said, autism isn't a rosy journey, but it's an amazing journey nonetheless. So that said, if it's tough for you right now, if it's really tough, listen to the message of support from other parents like you. Be assured that things will improve and that it will not be overwhelming forever. As one said, nothing in my life has made me grow as a person more than learning how to parent 3 kids with autism. So I'm sharing this message because if we support each other through the hard times, we can celebrate together in the good times as well. And as an adult on the autism spectrum, I can assure you that there will be plenty of good times. So that's about all from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you know other parents out there like you, show them some love and support by sending them this video too. And I'd like to finish with the words of a very small yet exceedingly wise yellow plastic figurine. Everything is better when we stick together. Thanks. Bye.